South African businesses have committed themselves to rebuild and address challenges facing the country to achieve economic growth. 115 CEOs of major South African companies have pledged to help government reverse the downward trajectory the country is currently on. The initiative comes as South Africa faces crippling power cuts, a deteriorating freight rail capacity, and a growing threat from criminal groups that have laid siege to public infrastructure. Now, earlier this year, business leaders were fearful that South Africa risked becoming a failed state. To discuss this initiative further, we are joined by Business Unity South Africa CEO, Coovadia. Business pledge, obviously, to get the economy back on track, and they really want to save. South African companies are wanting to step up to save the crisis hit South Africa. So let's take a look and chat to Cass. Cass, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very, very much for joining us.
Thanks, Leanne. Thanks for having me to the listener, to the viewers.
Obviously, this is a worthwhile initiative when you look around and you see what is actually happening. But why the need for South African businesses to help government? Are business leaders becoming more active because the energy crisis is obviously increasingly affecting their pockets?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for this, Leanne. Firstly, the 115 CEO, that's increased since we announced that, and will continue to increase. More and more CEOs are expressing interest to participate in the initiative. Secondly, I think that business identified three critical areas: energy, logistics and transport, and crime and corruption, which we need to make some critical interventions in to enable us to lift confidence in the country, to make investors more confident to invest, and so that we can start growing our economy. We are quite clear that without economic growth and inclusive economic growth, we can't address problems of unemployment, poverty, inequality, because we just don't have the money to do that if we don't have growth. So business obviously has an interest in this, in that if we make a difference in these three areas, we can actually grow our businesses, we can form new businesses, and not just large corporates, but small, medium enterprises as well. And we can create jobs. But also, if we address these issues, it has a positive impact on ordinary citizens, because ordinary citizens are just as much affected by energy, by the collapse of our rail system, and by crime and corruption. So we believe it's in the national interest to do that. Government, the president has been on record as saying government does not have sufficient capacity to do that. And what business is doing is not trying to solve the problems of the country. It's bringing capacity to bear to enable government to do what it should be doing in partnership with government.
Yeah, and this is a reality, because, I mean, when you look around, you understand that at the heart of it all, without a growing economy, there's just going to be higher unemployment. More and more people are going to be affected. Businesses are shutting down, and people are living in desperate times. So when we talk about the amount of people and companies that have actually come together, perhaps you can give us a glimpse into what kind of market share we're talking about, and the companies, how many people they employ, how many are coming together to actually sign this actual petition that's coming out and going to government.
Well, Leanne, as we said, we announced 115 CEOs. There's been considerable more interest since then, and we're looking at a mechanism to include other CEOs and other companies in the pledge. It's not a petition going to government. It's just this is business internally coming together and pledging to say that we believe that we have a role to play as corporate citizens. We believe that business has capacity and resources to bring to bear to issues that are of interest to the nation, of national interest. And so we are mobilizing business through this pledge to actually support BUSA and other business organizations in working with government to make a difference in these three areas. If you look at just the first 115, and then if you look at more coming in, These are businesses that employ millions of people. I don't have the full figure in front of me, but employ millions of people and a significant part of the economy. If you look at the CEOs that have been involved in discussions with government, there's CEOs of the major banks, there's CEOs of the major assurance companies, there's critical mining CEOs, there's CEOs of major retail stores, there's CEOs of in the health area, like Adrian Gore, for instance, from Discovery, Stavros Nicolau from Aspen. So it's across a broad range of the economy, significant part of the economy that employs millions of people. And these are businesses that are committed to South Africa, wanting to invest in South Africa, and want to work with government to create an environment to enable South African businesses to invest, but also global investors to come back here.
Yeah, and look, it certainly is needed, but one would imagine that that I don't know, is this enough? When you look at sort of political will and some of the things that we're seeing, I mean, whether we look at what's happening in Cape Town, what's happening on the roads, what's happening with our electricity, and now talk of selling off and privatizing certain aspects of Eskom. Obviously, that hasn't been confirmed. It's still leaked letters and all of these talks. But there's so much going on. You bring CEOs to the table, but how much influence do they really have in terms of saying to government, great, we're going to work with you, when perhaps maybe government is, they've got their own ideas?
Yeah, so we've been at pains to say that this initiative is not a panacea to all the problems you put on the table. This is a very concentrated, targeted initiative in these three areas to identify critical interventions and to then implement them and work with government to implement them, that will actually begin to raise confidence and enable us to stop the slide that the country is in. And if we can stop the slide, we can then start turning this massive ship around. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take time. So the other issues, the structural reform issues in the economy, the issues related to corruption, the issues related to political will and political certainty are issues that through BUSA and other organizations we continue to engage with the government on. But what we want through this initiative, which we're doing through the B4SA platform, what we want to do is we want to try not to get involved in all the political, the ideological debates, because that we tend to get caught up in those. Those will continue and must continue, and we must make progress on that through the business organizations. But on these three initiatives, now that we've got the working groups together, we're working together, what we want to do is identify, and energy, we made progress. We put experts into NECOM, we put people into 4 power stations. Similarly with logistics, we want to work with Transnet, we want to see what capacity business can put in. We want to see how we can open up space for private sector participation in the logistics industry. And on crime and corruption, how we check up the capacity of the NPA without impacting on the independence, how we develop forensics capacity for the country, and so on. And these are specific interventions that, as I say, will stop the slide and enable government to actually do the bigger thing it needs to do. Yeah. So this needs to be seen side by side with the ongoing efforts by business organizations to address the broader issues, and we need to continue to work on those as well.
So, sometimes when government and business get involved with one another, it can also turn into things that are not necessarily too above board. And, then there's the promises of business being passed on to this one and that one, and then that's where the corruption comes in, and we start going into the cycle of state capture. Now, and I'm not saying that that's what's going to be happening, but how do we keep this clean? How do we ensure that this actually is for the benefit of the country and the people who live in it, and not necessarily for the business or the businessman that has said, I'm here to help you, I've got the means, so let's do it?
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely important. We don't want another round of state capture through this. So let me use the work we've done on energy as an example because it's the most advanced and how we've done it. So in energy, we happy with the president's energy plan because we released our plan about 2 weeks before he released his, and there was synergy between the plan. President established NECOM, and we felt that NECOM, with very little capacity, was beginning to do a fair amount of work. And when the president approached us to say that he needs resources for expertise in NECOM, we discussed this and we said that we'll do this on an arm's length basis and in a transparent way. So we put together not light touch, not for profit called the Resource Mobilization Fund to do two things: raise the money to secure the expertise, and through an open procurement process, RFP process, we put together a procurement team leading senior procurement people from various corporates, and then headed up by Andrew Donaldson, who used to be at Treasury. And they, through an RFP process on the basis of what NECOM identified, and the National Business Initiative has something called TAMDev, which has been seconding people to government. They did all the backroom work. We secured through the RFP process expertise. We had a short list. We took them through integrity checks. We put those to government. Government chose the expertise they need, and we then donated that to NECOM, and they are now sitting at NECOM, accountable to NECOM, not to us.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then we've now gotten into a cadence of regular feedback to broader business and to broader society through media roundtables and so on. So a day after the last meeting with the president, we briefed business. We also had a media roundtable and briefed the public on exactly what the outcomes of the meeting was, where we are on the initiatives, and we're trying to get to a stage where we actually have these briefings jointly between business and government. Yeah. And we're absolutely clear that we need to be transparent about this. We need to inform broader business, and we need to keep the public informed through regular interactions with the media.
Yeah, it is important that these kind of partnerships do come to fruition and we do see some results. I mean, I'm seeing that, you know, in terms of what you're hoping to achieve through this, focusing on the three spheres you've mentioned, the business heads and minds coming together to assist governments in the areas that they need. You're hoping through this to actually grow the economy by 3%. It's quite an ambitious target, but in terms of doing something like that, I mean, do you really think that this is achievable with this kind of intervention?
Leanne, look, there's no guarantees, and you know, we've tried these things before, but I think that there's a window of opportunity. We certainly see significant commitment from the president, and the relevant government people are participating in the work streams that we put together. I think that the presidency in particular, through NECOM on the energy side, and now we've put together a similar structure for logistics, is working very hard on this. The meetings with the president that we've had, even including the one on the 1st of August, have been very positive. We've had senior people from the law and order fraternity, from the logistic fraternity and energy fraternity, from government at those meetings, as we had senior people from business. And we're working at this. So it's a tough ask given where the country is, but we believe that if we go at the pace we're going and with the commitment we have and the political will remains, I think we can make a significant difference. But let's also understand that even if we reach 3% growth, we're treading water. We're not making a dent on unemployment. We only start making a dent on unemployment when we have growth rates of 5 and above. Yeah. So we've got a lot of work to do. It's a big ship to turn, and so, but let's keep our shoulders to the wheel.
And Cass, just a final closing note. I just want to ask you, and very quickly, when you approached government with this plan and you sat down, because I know you have, not on one occasion, but you've actually had 2 meetings, did they at any time say, listen, business, you stay in your lane, leave us alone. We know what we're doing, we have our way of doing business, and you mustn't interfere with us? I mean, talking policies, relations with Russia, Ukraine, US. I mean, we've got AGOA. That's, of course, the South African, the African Growth and Opportunity Act. There's the forum that's happening this month, possibility of being kicked out of the United States trade agreement because of these close ties. I mean, did they at any say, hang on, stop, you stay in your lane, you cannot get involved in these kind of things, but these things are what's also hampering the public image of us?
Well, on this initiative, government has taken the view that we need to work together.
Okay.
On some of the broader issues, Russia, AGOA, and all of those, as I said, those through the business organization, we will continue. We will continue to make our views felt. We will continue to engage government on those. And there are times when those engagements will be robust. We may not agree on everything. So this initiative doesn't mean that business doesn't hold government to account on a whole range of issues, and that government doesn't actually interact robustly with business on those issues. So, let's be absolutely clear that there are a range of issues, both political and economic, that business and government do not agree on at the moment, and we will continue to actually engage on that, and sometimes those engagements will be robust. But we want to say that's why we're saying let's keep the policy and politics out of this initiative. Let's just try to make a difference in these 3 areas and understand that there's a whole lot of issues that we are going to differ on and we are going to engage on, and sometimes those engagements are going to be robust.
All right, we leave it there. Cass, thank you. Thanks very much for talking to us. That was Business Unity South Africa's CEO, Cass Coovadia, speaking about business assisting government in getting the economy back on track.